everyone. I think I got an early start there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Oni Celebration Panel. I'm Mandy Hutchinson. You probably know me from The Dice Tower and To Die For Games. And well, we have a treat for you. And so many things. I was so excited. I started talking about a few things behind the scenes, and I was like, well, wait, let's share this with everybody. So that's what we're going to do. But some exciting people here today. So let's bring them out. Let's introduce them. So first up, we have Charlie Chu, EVP Oni Press, Oni Entertainment, Oni Games. Okay, so I think I've got all the names in there, Charlie. You can correct me if I missed anything. It was a lot, right? And I should probably note before I bring everybody else on, we want to make sure everyone's using the correct pronouns. I use she, her, and Charlie, I have you down as he, him. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent news. Next up, we have Steve Ellis, head of Oni Games, and also uses the pronouns he, him. Welcome, Steve Ellis.
Thank you so much.
And last, but certainly not least, but a bit of a troublemaker, Scott Gaeta, president and publisher at Renegade Game Studios, also using the pronouns he, him. Hello, Scott.
Hello, good morning.
I know, I've started the trouble today. No, not yet. But that's okay. That's okay. So, exciting stuff. I've got some questions I'm going to throw out to you today in this panel, and everybody else that's listening, welcome, chat. I see a lot of regulars, so thanks for coming out to watch this panel. We will be having a Q&A later in the chat, so we'll probably give you about 15 minutes or so. So get those questions ready, but don't be afraid to throw out some things during the session because we might pull those in as well. So anything before we get started on the panel? They're quiet, so I think they're ready. They're ready. Okay.
Well, we have a panel, 3 West Coast guys first thing in the morning, so we're still getting up to speed here.
Okay, so I have a little too much pep in my step, is what you're telling me.
No, it's good. It'll draw it out of us.
It'll jazz it up. All right. Yeah. So we'll start with an easy question because everybody wants to know, how did Renegade Game Studios and Oni Press start working together? How did that relationship blossom?
Oh, so ironically, so from my point of view, I was kind of shanghaied, and what happened is that I went and started Renegade Game Studios, and I had been working on licensed games for pretty much my entire career, and said, all right, Renegade, I'm going to take a break. We're going to do original IP. We're going to not worry about licenses. And about 6 months after Renegade was founded, Charlie contacted me and said, hey, we've been thinking about doing a Scott Pilgrim deck building game, and we've been talking to Keith Baker, and Keith Baker said, call Scott and see if he's interested in doing it. And I was like, yeah, I guess I am. So there you go. Like, my plan of not doing any, third-party license IP lasted about 6 months, and it's really all Charlie and Keith's fault. Yeah, that's how it got started.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Keith Baker and I met because Oni, in the course of publishing comics, does the convention circuit, and part of the thing that's super fun about working at a company like Oni is that we do a lot of comics conventions, but we also do conventions like Penny Arcade and the stuff that's sort of, comics adjacent and more sort of video gamer and gamer friendly. And, in the course of that, I met Keith Baker. We started talking about board games. I was relatively new to the industry, and we started figuring out Scott Pilgrim. Baker was a super fan, and Baker was like, oh, you need to talk to Scott Gaeta. And this thing, he's got going with Renegade. And then Scott and I met, and, everyone's been a huge fan of the Pilgrim franchise. So it was this weird thing where I know Scott was always hesitant to be like, you're not doing licensed games. I've been doing that for so long. Pilgrim is a license, but at the same time, it's like the opportunity of working with Brian O'Malley, who creates the comics, and doing board games. I don't know. It felt like it's a license, but you're trying to make a guy who made a comic happy at the end of the day, and the fans that love that book.
Yeah. There's a huge following. I mean, as a Canadian, hey, I really appreciate it, and I know it's really big. So, I mean, I think everyone's thrilled that it went in that direction. So, anything you want to add to it, Steve?
I mean, just that, like, Scott and I had known each other a long time at this point, maybe 20 years. So Scott and I had also worked on another game and published another game together that I had designed. And so it was just kind of a natural fit. The strange thing is Charlie and I are both in Portland, Oregon, and Charlie and I met via Scott at a Renegade dinner at Gen Con. So it was kind of a bizarre thing. That was the first time Charlie and I met.
Really?
Yeah. Steve and I enjoy a very robust working relationship at Oni that would not have happened if we were not assigned seats next to each other the year we put out that Scott Pilgrim card game with Renegade.
That's right.
I think it's a Park Grill. Is it the Park Grill we do?
Yeah, it was something, right?
I just remember it was a weird restaurant in Indianapolis during Gen Con that has a painting of an old athlete, Newt Rockney, that looks like Bruce Willis. And it's like a massive painting that's like 8 feet tall. That always cracks me up because it just looks like Bruce Willis to me because I'm not a sports guy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that was our Gen Con dinner where we invited all of designers that had designed games for us that year and all our partners and things like that. So maybe that's my revenge. You got me back into licensed games, so I got you, Steve.
You foisted Steve Ellis
with me.
That's right.
Scott stuck Charlie with me. I don't know. I mean, Charlie and I have been great, though. It's Charlie and I have very similar interests. We like games and comics, and we like to eat lots and lots of good food.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I see some in the chat here. Speaking of food, Scott, did you have your cereal today?
I did not have my cereal today. I am on my second cup of tea this morning. So I'll give my little plug to Rancho Obi-Wan, Steve Sansweet's museum. But I'm on tea, and my breakfast this morning was not cereal. It was some French bread that I shoved in my face before the panel, so I would have some food in me. So there you go.
Charlie and Steve, you're probably like, what in the world are we talking about? On a previous, when we did the opening show, Renegade O's kind of made it in. So if you feel the need that you want to tell us what your breakfast was today, please throw it out there. It is the most random thing ever. People might want to know.
I had part of a leftover chorizo burrito from yesterday. That's that. I mean,
my breakfast is a steady diet of too much news in Twitter. So that's all I've had this morning, which is probably not the healthiest way to start a day, but
Twitter diet will keep you slim and trim, I think. So you're good.
Oh, there's so much going on. There's so much going on.
I know, I'm sorry. It's just I had to go there. Okay, well, now that we know the connection and the story, oh my goodness, you all have me in tears right now. I see that Steve is wearing a T-Dragon Society shirt, which is one of my favorites.
Inspired by a post from Mandy this past week on social media where she was wearing this shirt, and I was like, oh, I'm going to dig that out for the panel.
Yes! I've been meaning to turn mine into a dress, actually. So I have a thing for... I know, because right now I'm wearing a strawberry shortcake dress that I made, so I was thinking of taking some shirts that I had and making them. Anyway, I probably shouldn't say that on air, but surprise! I'm making a T-Dragon dress at some point.
I love it.
Okay, good.
So
go ahead, Scott.
So Steve, I almost wore that T-Dragon shirt this morning, but I couldn't find it. So I spared us the who wore it better debacle of us both showing up to the party wearing the same
I mean, the good news is we had a couple minutes and we're all at home, so one of us could have changed.
True. That is very, very true.
I could run off camera right now if I really felt the need, but I'm tired.
Yeah. That might need to happen. So the T-Dragon Society and the upcoming Autumn Harvest, a T-Dragon Society game, are the two games set in the world of the T-Dragon Society. What made you decide to make a game in this world, and how did it come about?
Oh, wow. I think...
sorry, that was a lot.
Well, that's quite a question. It's early, remember? So myself and Tyler Tinsley are the ones who designed both those games. Basically, when Charlie and I started talking, Charlie just kind of said, what do you want to do out of this, 20-year Oni catalog? And I was like, well, what's what does well, what kind of genres do we have? And I started looking at the catalog, and I was instantly drawn to Katie's art. And when I read her books, I was drawn to the story and the characters. So I thought, let's do this one. And I think half of Oni Press was like, really? Are you sure? Like, I think people were thinking we'd go for something very different than that, right? And I was like, no, that's the thing I think that's the most unique and interesting out of what I see that has some popularity behind it. And Tyler and I started working on it, and it was just like exploring Katie's world, and just it's so cute, and trying to come up with a game that fit the world itself and spoke to the fans without being overly complicated, and at the same time being interesting, for gamers and family members alike. So, I think we were just so drawn to the art, and then once we read the story, it's like you kind of buy all in on Katie O'Neill once you see one of her books and read it. So as soon as we read those books, and Tyler is probably even more taken than myself. Like, I mean, he was head over heels in love with that story in the book and everything. Aww. And I mean, he's a cute animal guy. Like, he loves cute animals, and tea dragons were just amazing, right? So we'd been messing around with like some weird kind of cute animal like things anyway from gaming's perspective, but we never found anything that would fit, right? So as soon as we saw the Katie O'Neill stuff, we were inspired to just kind of run with that idea and create the thing we did. So, and hopefully fans like it.
Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of my friends, I brought home I have some of the little plushy toys in the corner here, you can't see it, the game, and I brought it, and I thought, oh, I don't know if my friends are really going to be into this, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I went out and bought that game that you showed us the other day, and I was like, what? And really, you like it? And she's like, I got my kids into it. So do you find that it's bringing in a different type of audience? Is it kind of growing on the same audience? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very different audience. Like, I think my favorite comment, like with the year we released it at Gen Con, the number of companies that came up to like Scott and I when it was at the booth, and were asking questions about, oh, like the crowd of people you have for that game is really different, right? You have all kinds of like women and families and kids, and it's like, what did you guys do? And it's like, well, have you looked at it? Like, I mean, we made a game that appeals to different people, right? I mean, it's not rocket science to see why the crowd is different, right? So I think it does draw in a different crowd. It draws in a family crowd that's, more interested in the aesthetics, right? And kind of the play experience, as opposed to just like, what are the raw mechanics of this thing that I can manipulate, right? Whereas a lot of gamers, I think, are drawn to the mechanical aspect of a game, and maybe they're drawn to the art in a very different way, right? A lot of gamers are. I mean, I think that we can all agree that there are a lot of amazing Euro games that we like to call them that are visually unimpressive and uninspiring, right? Like, we play them and we love them, but we go, huh, all right, I guess that's another beige board with buildings and
trading in the Mediterranean.
Look, there's a dude with a
I mean,
crown,
like,
right?
I like thinking of Tea Dragon in terms of like, there's a sense of escalation on, that's a funny business term to use in this, but like, there's a sense of escalation in the way that like we really enjoy working with Renegade, because it's like, if you look at like even the Scott Pilgrim game, as much as the game, it's still sort of like, here's a tabletop card game experience that's targeting video gamers and anime, which I think in tabletop and board games, people are only just starting to kind of understand what all that stuff sort of means culturally, right? And so doing something like Tea Dragon is also, again, getting to do stuff that for Team Oni, we're trying to do comics that don't feel as old man as sometimes, the Marvel DC universe can kind of feel in our audience. And so doing, Oni is a company that tries to bridge the gap between that side of the comics industry and market versus, say, like the YA middle grade kids book side of things. Like, Tea Dragon is kind of a great middle ground. And of course, want to do board games, with a company like Renegade that is doing stuff from like Arboretum to Clank, to all the other titles. It's like, it just made real good sense. And I think something that both our companies sort of share is that we like making very successfully accessible things for audiences that don't necessarily seem obvious, but of course they're everywhere.
Right.
And so, like, you know, again, it's just really gratifying to see that people have taken to the T-Dragon game, because it feels like, you know, just a confirmation of everything that we're all super excited about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a big part of the reason why the partnership between Renegade and Oni works so well, because a big part of our mission right from day one was we didn't want to just keep making the same games for the same people that everybody makes.
Right.
You know, we don't need any more games about wood and sheep. Like, wood and sheep are fine, but, like, you know, I think that's been done 100 times. Like, let's move on. So it's
I feel like wood and sheep are for you guys what superheroes and zombies are for us.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. Well, and it comes up internally every once in a while where we're like, are we ever going to make a pirate game? And we're like, no, I don't think so. Like, we don't need any more pirate games unless we come up with something really special. And that would be okay. But really, like, the point is, like, I fell in love with Katie's stuff when I saw Princess Ever After. And I remember talking to the team over there, and we're like, this is great, because this reaches a new audience that we're not currently reaching in tabletop games in any meaningful way. Sure, there's plenty of other people out there that are trying to do the things that we're doing, and I think that's good. More people need to do these same types of things and reach new audiences, because that just grows the entire the fan base, right, for tabletop games.
Absolutely.
But it's still in its infancy, right? There's still we just get, you know, lots of fantasy games and things like that, and that's all great. I love those games too, but we need to make games that actually bring new people in too. And you know, it's kind of like our little thing that's in our boilerplate, that we believe that everybody's a gamer. You just haven't found the game that's right for you yet. So let's make games for everybody.
No, and that's a really good philosophy or a way of thinking, because I do find sometimes companies kind of get stuck in that, well, this is selling really well, so push that. And you see that in a lot of game stores, right? Because, like, Magic, for example, it's huge, and then everything's kind of like over here. So it's nice and welcoming to people. And I know I've used these types of games, you know, in the classroom. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And, you know, just people that don't generally play games are like, oh, I really like this. And to us, it might be really light and easy, but for them, it's a new experience. So I think that's a really great kind of take on it. I have to say, I'm disappointed that I didn't know that there was another T-Dragon game coming out. Shame on me. So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, so Autumn Harvest is coming back. I believe the release date is now November 11th. We decided to avoid November 4th for some reason. Obvious reasons. So the new Autumn Harvest game, it's fully compatible with the original T-Dragon Society game.
Fantastic.
So we did that. So we made sure that was happen. We also added a few mechanics to the game to make the game, you know, a little more interesting and allow a little bit more strategic development as you play the game and things like that. But we didn't overwhelm anyone. I promise it's still an equally good first game experience, right? So for new players and stuff, it'll be fine. We did tweak a couple of little things. So we made a few improvements where, like, each dragon now has a little, you flip it over and it tells you every card that's in your starting deck. So it's a little easier to decide on what cards to buy and how to combo things up, you know. And we also printed new dragon cards for all the old dragons, so you'll have similar cards that look exactly the same for all of them. So everything's 100% compatible. You can mix and match all you want, or you can play them separately. So I think that we kind of did the best of both worlds. So I hope fans love it. I think as always, I think it's, you know, a slight improvement on the original game because we had more time to think about it. And in hindsight, you're always like, oh, I would have changed that one, right? And as a designer, you're never finished. Like, it goes to the market and you're still going, I might have changed that one card a little bit, right? But at some point you put your pencils down and you move on. But yeah, I think it's great. I'm really proud of it. I think the art is as good, maybe better than the first one. Katie did some new art for the new dragons and it's just fantastic. So I can't wait for people to see it and play it. We've got demos going this weekend, I believe, and there's a live stream play of myself and some of the other Oni team members playing later today. Check it out.
Cool.
Do you see more, and I don't know if this is more a question for Charlie or Scott or any of you, any more accessories to go with some of the new stuff?
You want more toys, guys?
Maybe.
So let's just say that there were a lot of meetings recently about cool merchandise and accessories. But I don't have any announcements that I'm allowed to make right now.
Got it. And Scott's not allowed to say anything, even if he knew, so.
Because, in fact, Sarah told me I couldn't tell him anything, because otherwise he'd...
Oh, good. Okay, so yeah, you've been told already. Oh, goodness. So there's a question, and it's kind of a sidebar question, but Amanda McKnight, I see your question. So you know what? I'm going to ask it because it kind of ties in a little bit with what we're talking about. Are there any other Oni series / stories / licenses that you feel would lend really well to tabletop games? This is a great question. I like this question.
All of them. I mean, Steve can speak to this. I think the issue for us at Team Oni is less about if there's stuff that we can do than it is there's only so many hours in the day. I mean, you know, like I would love to do like a 6-gun game, a Kaiju Max game. You know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff out of the Oni library that we'd love to do. Courtney Crumrin. You know, it's just, I think for our ongoing collaboration and for development on the Oni game side, I think it's more about just trying to find the right game designer, the right kind of game to match up with the comic, and also figure out, like, you know, we're not trying to pipeline and shotgun blast everything out really quickly. We're trying to, you know, find the creative bandwidth to focus on one thing at a time. In fact, that's sort of the ongoing challenge, is just having the discipline of finishing what's on your plate before going for another helping. You know, because I think in the end, you know, the part that is great working with Renegade is that, you know, for us, we're not trying to do a million games at once. We just want to make really great games. The fact that they're sourced from comics is an added bonus, but also, you know, we're trying to protect the underlying properties and make them cool. And, you know, there's a lot of people who can just sort of fire off licensed properties. I think for all of us, we just want to make stuff that feels resonant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's true. We have so many properties, it'd be great. I mean, I think the Space Battle Lunchtime game we did earlier this year that Daniel Solis designed for us was fantastic. And it kind of came out in the midst of COVID. And so I think it might have been overlooked a little by some people. So I hope people go back to that one and check it out. There's so much. We are not 100% constrained to doing just Oni properties. We've got something cool in the works that's not based on an Oni property that will come out probably not until 22. But I mean, we're not constrained just by Oni properties, but we could do Oni properties forever because there's so many cool ones.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like that question was a trap by Amanda. She was
wow.
She wants something.
Yeah. You know.
She wants some. She could just come right out and ask.
Yeah, well, she's looking for a scoop for her show. That's the thing. Like she does the wrap up, and you know, so she's looking for things. That's what she's up to.
Oh no, Amanda, they called you out. So, so I do see your other questions. We will get to them. Okay, so don't. Everybody in the chat, I'm not overlooking. I do see them, and we will definitely go back to answering them. So we talked earlier about, I talked earlier about education, so I'm just going to throw it in there. So for those who don't know, I'm a teacher. I used to teach children. Now I teach adults, and I picked up a couple books from Oni Press at a convention and having to do with learning people's pronouns and things like that. And it's gone on to be very popular with other friends who are teachers who have now implemented using them in their classroom. Is there going to be some tie-in, and this could fall into Renegade as well, but Oni Press, Renegade, any type of things that will lend itself to more educational or learning purposes? So in classrooms, anything like that on the horizon?
This is an Oni question. I'm going to sit back.
I ask those hard-hitting questions.
You're going to sit back. I'll say that we have a lot of discussions ongoing about how to become more involved in that market. We're very involved in the library market already. So we've got some people on our team that work really closely with librarians. So we're trying to figure out how we can expand some of the things we do with librarians out to universities and schools and things like that as well. Any other comments on that, Charlie?
I mean, again, everything that we do is sort of relatively bespoke. Obviously, it would be great doing stuff that is more education focused. I mean, we have a lot of titles in the quick and easy line. That would be really great to explore as like tabletop properties. But, again, for us, a lot of this is a marriage of figuring out, game design plus content and sort of figuring out if there's a thing that can be executed from that perspective, right? Education is fantastic, but I think for us, our process is so less contingent on, oh, hey, there's this gaping hole in the market that we can fill easily. And it's kind of like, well, we kind of have to figure out what the game is first, how it packages all together. So, again, it's that thing where what you're describing is very much an itch we should scratch and are looking for opportunities to figure that out.
Okay. Because I know for myself as a teacher, it's hard to kind of find specific games that are just for education or just for learning. They have them, you know what I mean? But I often find that you find games that are adjacent to, so I'll bring them in the classroom. They're not strictly educational, but I'll kind of use it as a lesson to kind of, someone's learning something and say, oh, do you see the similarities, what we're doing here? That sort of thing.
I have a 6-year-old, and we've been doing a lot of math during quarantine by not doing math. Like, I cheat and describe it as board game time.
Right.
And so, we play a lot of Point Salad, which is a game from another publisher. It's great because it's basically a mathy game, but he doesn't think of it, right? And trust me, it's hard not looking at games like that and not feeling an itch of like, that's an area that I think tabletop is uniquely suited to attacking. For the educational space, and it is that weird line of like, you want it to feel educational but not be educational, because on the other side of the other side, my son has this board game that I absolutely loathe, that is kind of like, it's a math game where the dice are like numbers, and there's one die that's 1 through 6, another die that's a plus or minus symbol, and it's literally one of those like, you roll a die and you move X number of squares, and it's like a lack of ambition on something like this that someone just put out there. It's hard for me and someone who works towards thinking of board games in 2020, and it's just like, oh my god, there's so much game here made, and a cool game that doesn't make you ashamed of everything.
And you can't say that, right? You can't say that to your students or your children. You're just, okay. But yes, you're thinking of ways how you could rework it to be a little bit more exciting. Yeah, been there.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, we're a couple of years off from me getting to crack Arboretum, although I'm worried that the second I play Arboretum with my child, it's going to be a form of child abuse, because that is like the most ruthless game ever made.
Oh, yeah. It is. Kids would be good at it, probably.
Well, what will happen is there'll be a turning point at some point, right? Like it'll go full circle, and then eventually your child is just going to wipe the floor with you at Arboretum.
Yep.
And then you're going to, the tables.
I didn't say I was the one committing the child abuse. It might be the child committing abuse on the parent.
Right.
That's accurate.
I was going to say that I predict it's game 4.
Game 4, that'll happen.
I think it turns on game 4 for Charlie. I've met Oliver multiple times. He's a stone cold killer.
Oh wow! I want updates.
That sounds like we need a pool. We need to start
We need to start something. Oh goodness gracious! Oh, you all have me crying over here because
Yeah, don't let Charlie's son Oliver. Don't let the cuteness, distract you. The kid is sharp. He's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
I can't wait to start firing up our rounds of Gudetama shortly.
Gudetama, speaking of, is the cutest game ever, and I've already kind of pitched this to Scott about making shirts, or heck, I'll even just make a dress if I can get some kind of licensing happening here. But and this one was recently released. If you can give me a date, I apologize, I don't have that on hand, from the Oni Games Renegade Game Studio partnership. So what makes this one special? I know I'm throwing out some ones you got to think about a little bit, but what makes Gudetama special? And from each perspective is good.
Yeah, somebody else go first.
I mean, from my perspective, again, it's that we're reaching a new audience. We're bringing new people into the space, into tabletop, right? Like Gudetama is actually a huge brand, and it's really well known, and it has its fans. And then to be able to give them a tabletop game and introduce them to tabletop, like we see this repeatedly over and over and over again, where a significant percentage of people that will come in and purchase that game or a game like that will say, this is my first board game, right? This is my first card game. And they'll all have those common experiences, and that I played Monopoly, and I played kind of those childhood staples.
Right.
And I mean, again, we're bringing new people in, and it's about a lazy egg. So, how wrong could you go?
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aggressively addictive, accessible card game that is branded around a nihilistic egg who's feeling extreme ennui. I mean, that's about as on brand as it gets in 2020. And Steve and the team turning it into, I don't know, this is gonna, but it's like the video game arcade equivalent of a quarter eater. Like, the thing that's nuts about Gudetama is that it's the kind of card game you streaming night with. It's like, oh hey, let's get warmed up before we play, I don't know, something really heavyweight. But because the game exists, is basically completed more or less if you play it sort of like in a lightning round kind of a way. Something that is like 5 to 10 minutes each time you go through a game, you end up playing again and again and again. Before you know it, like 3 hours are gone, and you've never touched the bigger game. And it's kind of like it's a perfect game to play in front of people who aren't gamers, and that's kind of the part that's fun about it.
And you know why that happens? Why you play it for 3 hours and you don't get to the bigger game? Because eggs are greater than sheep.
It's true. It's true.
Man, I'm killing the sheep game. I'm killing the sheep game we have in the works right now.
Oh no!
Yeah, sheep butts are not as
not a thing.
No, I mean, I don't know. Gudetama was an interesting challenge from a design perspective, just because, I mean, I think the real outlook of all of the Oni Games team is that we want to make things that fit for what the property is, or the IP, etc. Right? And so we start looking at Gudetama, and we're like, wow, there are a lot of 5-second memes, right? And they're great. And I mean, and it's this huge fan base, and it's like, okay, well, this needs to be a game that is just fun and fast and has lots of cool moments where things, somebody pulls something off that's great, or things fall apart and you just get hammered at the end of the hand, right? I mean, and it's fun, right? And it's fast. So I mean, that's the thing, right? We just wanted something that was simple and gave great gaming moments at the table. And I think it delivers. It's fun. I think it plays up to 7 players. It's strangely, this happened, we were working on this right before COVID. It basically took over the office at lunchtime as a 2-player game. Everybody wanted to sit across the table and try to beat someone one-on-one, because it's got this strange addictive head-to-head thing that you go back and forth on. Sure. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I'm thrilled with how it turned out. And I mean, working with Sanrio with a license like this has been a dream. And I don't want to sell one incredibly important point short, and that's that the artist, Wookjin Clark, who did the art for us, let's face it, the art's amazing.
He killed it.
Fantastic.
He killed it. I mean, Hunter was an amazing person to work with, and we hope to do some more game art with him in the future, because it's just been amazing. And he also did the Gudetama books that Oni makes, so he's been awesome. And I think that's, I'm not gonna lie, 90% of a game selling is the artwork. I mean, that's what gets somebody to pick it up and look at it. If somebody buys a second copy, I can take a little credit as a designer, but it's very little is on me for the first copy someone buys.
And it's funny, that game, I was obsessed with Sanrio, but I think my focus was really on Choco Cat and Hello Kitty, so I didn't know anything about Gudetama. And then Suzanne's like, how did you not know this? I'm like, I have no idea. So when we played, we were reading the cards, and this picture, look at his cute little bum.
The cards are great.
We were just good conversation, right? And oh great, how can I get this on a shirt? How can I do this? It was so fun. And I was losing horribly, but I didn't care at this point, because we were just having so much fun with the game itself. So I think all of the things you've said, it definitely resonates, because I lived it, so I thought that was really cool. And I know there's a question, and I am going to throw it out there. Bill Kennedy asked, is Gudetama completely a luck-based game? What are your thoughts?
I will happily play. I'd happily play one-on-one for cash.
so I not to step on this question, but that's kind of one of the things I love most about this game, is that Steve, as Steve sort of alluded to, the game is playable I think 2 to 7, right? And in a party game context, A trick-taking game like this is utter chaos because, this style of game, you're working with very little info at the start of the game, and then as time moves on, you get more insight based on the hands that are exchanging around and as tricks are being taken, right, from other players. The thing that feels magical about Gudetama specifically is that game is awesome in a group, but it different feel when it's two players head to head, because you have the illusion of control, because you have a stronger sense of what the other player might have. And I don't know, it's not like Gudetama is not as luck based as you might think it would feel necessarily. And again, the nature of information that you exchange as hands go by quickly, it just feels like this fleeting sense of control perpetually that's baked into the game that makes it so like addictive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the one thing I like about it is that if you lose, it's 100% bad cards. Like, there's no doubt that you can blame it on bad luck if you lose. So the beauty of it is when you lose, it's not your fault. But if you win, you played brilliantly. It's the perfect. I mean, if you win, it's like, my gosh, like no one could have won with the hands I had. It was amazing. The run I made was so impressive, right? But when you lose, you just had bad hands. You don't have to worry about it.
I like that, actually. It makes me feel better about playing it now.
There are times when you just can't win with the hand you have. It's not your fault at all.
Yeah, but
when you win, you feel good about it.
Yeah, Steve says smugly as he's decimated most of the Oni staff at this game over many, many hands, being accused of being lucky perpetually.
There's definitely a significant amount of luck.
Isn't your shirt a lucky cat, Charlie?
It is, but it's like a black metal version of it.
Yeah. So do you wear that when you play Gudetama?
No, but I probably should. That might help. It certainly couldn't hurt.
Who has become the champion at the Charlie Chu household?
Oh.
I mean, like, hopefully
that sounds like Heather.
But like, my wife destroys me at that game. She claims she doesn't know what she's doing, but she seems to win a lot.
That's the worst, because I say that. That's the worst when someone goes, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing," and they beat you, and you're like, "Well, wait a second. How does that make me feel?" Oh goodness, I love it.
It's the luck factor.
Yeah, go with that.
There's a lot of luck. There's no doubt that there's a lot of luck, and the more players there are, the more luck there is.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen that.
It's the same way in my house. Don't feel bad, Charlie. My wife does the same to me with games. She's like, "I'm not really a gamer," and then we sit down and play a game, and she's like, "Take that!" Like super cutthroat, just wants to like run you into the ground. If it's a game based on her, winning by 1 point's not good enough. It's got to totally bury you. And then later on, it's like, "Yeah, oh, I'm not a gamer." Okay.
It's a strategy. Strategy in itself.
Yeah.
Oh, so we talked a little bit about Scott Pilgrim and talked about how it's been really big, and it's a huge franchise for Oni Press and Renegade. And there are 2 Scott Pilgrim games: Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Card Game and the upcoming Scott Pilgrim Miniatures: The World. Can you share some stories about making these games a reality?
So I don't know if these guys even know this. I will say, Scott Pilgrim Miniatures: The World was something I wanted to do probably the week that Charlie talked to me about doing the deck building game. Like, the thought was in my mind as I said, we're going to do the deck building game, and I love deck building games, so I was like, this is going to be awesome, but I really want to do a game with little miniatures of all the Scott Pilgrim characters. And I think I had even told Sarah internally, I was like, listen, we're doing the deck building game and all that. I said, but eventually we're going to do a miniatures game, and I haven't even told these guys yet. But that's what I want to do, is I want to get to miniatures and do that because I want little guys that can fight each other and do stuff. And that's when we eventually got there. So, there you go. There's the origins, at least in my head.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's like I like miniatures games. Like, again, it's a toy box that you can compete and play with your friends with. It's so funny because like I always think of miniatures as like there's no way we're ever making a miniatures game. Like, it's too much work. Like, it's too much work. And sure enough, Scott and the Renegade team were like just so up for it. I think even O'Malley was like overwhelmed with the sheer enthusiasm of trying to figure it out. Because, like, again, it is an elaborate process to make a game like that. And especially in a market where there's, a lot more miniatures games kind of out in the space, that, like, to do one that sort of stands up is a challenge. And, I'm really excited for people to play this arena battler. I mean, like, the pop-up boards, the way the figures actually came out are, like, people are gonna super dig it.
Yeah, we didn't make it easy on ourselves either, right? We did not just boards, we did pop-up boards. We did 3D terrain, like a 3D fountain that when you grind on the fountain, it starts to come apart. We decided that the miniatures weren't just going to be plain miniatures, that we were actually going to make them colored and pre-painted, so that way a fan would just get something that looks like the character.
Right.
Yeah, like we didn't take the easy path by any means, and it's coming along nicely. It's shipping at the end of the year. It's okay. COVID set us back a little bit. Factories slowed down and were shut down for a while. But yeah, it's awesome. Like it's everything we wanted it to be, and it's there. Like it was a lot of work getting into it. I remember like going up to Brian's house, like showing him prototypes. Like we'd go sit down at his kitchen table, and he's like going over stuff, and it's like, well, no, this guy's that, and fix the zipper and everything else. And we're like, this is awesome, because that's exactly what you want. Like you want every tiny little detail to be perfect, right? As perfect as you can possibly get. So it was fun. It was really a blast. So I'm excited.
I think
you can't tell.
I think fans. I think fans will even be excited about how impressive it all looks. Like I think fans will be surprised when they open the box and set it up.
Yeah.
This was designed by. Is this designed by Erica? Erica and Chris?
Yes.
Erica Boyoris and Chris.
No, Erica. So Erica was the designer on it.
Just Erica.
Just Erica. Yeah. And and it just was, an extra little icing on the cake that she's also Canadian and lives.
I know. I was about to say that. You beat me to it, so I appreciate you throwing that in there.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was fun for her too. She came down from Canada, came to LA, met with Brian.
Nice.
Played the game with her. Yeah, it was a really fun experience. It was a blast.
More importantly, we went to Langer's and had the pastrami sandwiches.
Yeah.
That was the critical part of everyone coming to LA to hang out with Brian.
Yes.
The original number 18 at Langer's.
Yeah,
I love it.
The most important part of the game development process were those.
Yes, the best pastrami sandwich you will ever have. I'm really sorry, Mendy's in Manhattan, but Mendy's is my second favorite pastrami sandwich. But yeah.
Oh goodness, I'll have to make a visit someday.
Mandy, we waited in line. It was like, we waited in line like down the block to get in there to have this sandwich, and it was worth it.
Are you serious? Okay, so it must be good then if there's a huge line. Yeah. Okay, it's on the list. I've added it.
Now, the rest of this panel is going to be rough, because now I'm just going to be thinking about that pastrami sandwich.
Right, the food?
Yeah.
You can blame Charlie for that one.
My fault. That is my fault.
So, thank you for all of those amazing answers, and I think everybody got some insight to, T-Dragon Society, Scott Pilgrim, Gudetama, and some other things within all the different companies. But we do have some questions, and I see them scrolling through there. So there are a couple. I think one we kind of answered, and I don't know. Let me see if I can scroll back up and find it here. It's the one about the plushies and whatnot, and I think I kind of asked this. So Amanda was saying, here it is. Will we ever see toys or merch that will add accessories we've seen in the T-Dragon game to our own plushie T-Dragons?
I mean,
is there merch for the game that would be added to general T-Dragon merch? Is that the question?
I think. Okay.
Generally,
more plushies, like the ones that are there.
More plushies.
We are currently having a large rolling conversation with Katie O'Neill about merchandising. I mean, the plushies, the enamel pins have been sort of part of our general roster of things that we do at Oni during convention season specifically. This year's been a challenge because, there's no conventions. We've been beefing up some of Oni's direct-to-consumer efforts. But, Katie, the balance with all these things, we've seen it historically with things like Scott Pilgrim, and something we're mindful of with T-Dragon is that, again, the thing we're trying not to do is just sort of blast a bunch of stuff, slap a label on it, and call it part of the brand. And so, the merchandising that Oni does with a lot of these books and with a lot of these creators is very much like, in direct collaboration with them. So like knows everything that we do. Like, we had a prototype process doing the plush toys, the enamel pins, and we had an expansive conversation about stuff we're trying to figure out for next year. We might have a couple of things by the end of this year, but it is down to bandwidth and also trying to be focused and disciplined about the things that we put out there, because we make sure that it looks as part of the brand and don't care.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. You're gonna get cool stuff. You're gonna get cool stuff. Yes, you just have to do all you just have to wait. You'll get it eventually.
Just to wait a little bit. I promise you that we have started working on some other cool things. At least one of which is a plush. I promise.
Excellent.
There will be a new plushie.
Very exciting. And I think coming back to what Charlie was saying, you want quality, I'm assuming, versus quantity and just shoving things out on the market. I mean, hello, do we not remember the WWF figurines? Ooh, sorry, I had to throw that out there. They were rough, right? And then they just, let's blast them out. So we don't want that to happen. So I appreciate that. I'm glad everybody on this panel is old enough to understand exactly what I'm talking about.
That's scary imagery, though. Ugh.
I do not want to see any T-Dragon merch that looks like it has a melty face. No melty face merch in the world.
That would be awful.
That would be terrifying.
Oh, that would be, you just scare away all the clients. No, absolutely. So, Amanda, you've got some great questions here. I love this. So, Amanda's also asking, how do you balance and blend stimulating gameplay and mechanics with intriguing storytelling?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
How do you do that, Steve?
I mean, I don't know. You get lucky, like. No, I mean, I think.
Flavor.
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, I think you have to consciously try to do that. I think that's the biggest part of it, right? Is you have to focus on it, and it has to be part of the design process. You can't just design a bunch of mechanics and slap a theme on it, right? I mean, I think that's the big part. I think if you're consciously thinking about it the whole time, it tends to work out, right? I mean, and plus you need to run it past with Katie, we're lucky because we've got someone who's a gifted storyteller who I can show the game to, right? And so, if what we're doing makes sense to, a person who I consider to be a storyteller of the highest order, then I feel like we're on the right track, right? I mean, so it's nice to have those kind of partnerships that you can lean on a little bit. But I think the biggest part is it has to be a very conscious effort on the front end of design that this is the kind of the feel and the aesthetic and the emotions that you want to get out of playing the game, have to be part of the design process. You can't just slap something together and say, I hope this works, right? You have to think about it. It's got to be part of the creative process on the front end.
Yeah. I mean, I think Aquacorn Cove, right, like does that phenomenally well, where you're not replaying the story from the book, but you're playing those themes in the game.
Right.
Like the themes and the messages in that story come through in the game, but you get your own story and your own way of living it out when you play the game. You're not just going through a scripted reenactment of the story. You're getting to have your own fun and kind of play in that sandbox and experience it in a very similar way that's totally totally in sync with the brand and with the story that you read. So that's always the whole grill. Like I'm always telling like new game designers, especially when they're starting to get into licensed games and design their first licensed game, is that it has to be a great experience for the fan first. If you can't do that, it doesn't matter if it's a great game. It absolutely doesn't matter if it's a great game. It could be the best game in the world, but if it's not a great experience and a great game for the audience, why are you even bothering to do a game based on that IP, right? So you have to accomplish that first. If you can't check that box, the next box doesn't matter. That's why, like, it's not totally relevant to this, but that's why doing games based on video games is so hard. You're creating a game based on a game, and the number one thing that you have to overcome is, why would I play this tabletop game instead of just playing the video game? You have to solve that problem. And and it's very similar to almost anything else. Like, why would I play Aquacorn Cove instead of just reading the book? Well, you play Aquacorn Cove because it's an expansion of that experience. I get to have my own adventure in that world.
Yeah.
So, and that's what the Oni games have done so well, that they are a continuation or an expansion of that story and that experience. So Gudetama, even like you get to be this horrible, like, nihilistic, glazy egg, right? Like, and the humor comes through, and the fun, and just it's silly and wacky. So
yeah. I think the thing Scott mentioned that's key to me is that I see a mistake on a lot of licensed products is where people try to design a game that is the story from the licensed thing. Right. And like, I, as a gamer or as a player, I don't have a lot, or as a fan, I don't have a lot of interest in reenacting the exact thing I witnessed that I became a fan for. Right. I want to play in that world, and I want to experience that world, but I don't want to just go through the serialized story that I watched on TV or whatever it was. So I think expanding the universe and doing something that's within the spirit of it is what's important, not following linear plot lines from an existing book or movie or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think fans, it's hard doing these types of games because you're going to get people who are like hardcore fans of a series, and they're going to be more critical, right, of everything that you're putting out. If it's a series like, I love, let's say, Fallout, for example, you know what I mean? Oh, well, the game didn't do this and the game didn't do that, especially if you do it as exactly like the game versus an extension of, or in that world. And then it's finding that balance of trying to attract other people who maybe don't play the game, but you still want them to understand and feel like they're a part of that world. So I find that balance really, really hard in doing so. So something to think about. We have another question here for you. So is it theme first or mechanics first? Is one more important than the other? We kind of talked about this a little bit, but...
Yeah. I mean, has it ever come up in that direction? It always feels like those all come together at the same time in a weird way. Okay. It's like, when we think about a game or we think about something, it's just, what could this be mechanically? But you're starting at the core of what like a book is, or like an IP like Gudetama. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily, at least for Team Oni, I think for Renegade, that's probably a larger question of how one targets a new project. But I mean, for us, it's always like, we sort of dissect the story and figure out what feels like, here's a game idea for it.
I don't think there's a...
I would agree.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to say, like, that theme versus mechanics, especially for a licensed game, it's not one doesn't come first, one doesn't come second. Think of it, it's like a zipper comes together. Like, those things are so integrated, and they have to mesh. They have to mesh, or it just doesn't work, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I think that's the only option for successfully designing a licensed product. I think that there's no wrong way to design a game in general. Like, if you come up with a great mechanic, I think that can sometimes turn into a great game. But I do think that for a licensed product, they have to really blend together and be part of the same conversation. You can't just do one thing and not the other.
Right.
Whereas like on a board game that doesn't have a license or any kind of background story or history with it, like, maybe you can come up with a brilliant mechanic and say, oh, now, like, based on these mechanics, what kind of theme would fit it? Like, I think that works fine, and I think some games happen that way, but it doesn't work that way well with licenses. Yeah.
Right. Or you may just do it as an abstract, right? It may have no theme.
Yeah.
Just maybe an abstract theme, and that's okay too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you commonly see that with a lot of roll and writes, right? I mean, lately people are really trying, but it's really hard to pin a theme to a roll and write, right? But still, people still love them. So,
yeah, I mean, there are completely themeless roll and writes that I think are fantastic game designs.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely find it harder though in the larger kind of games. Then it's tough. It's a tough sell. Yeah. So I think
if I'm going to play a
90.
Yeah.
Sorry,
if
go
I'm
ahead.
going to play a 90-minute game, I'd like to be absorbed in a 90-minute game.
Right. Right. An experience.
Yeah, I need more.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have the last question for the panel. What is, and this is for everybody to answer, what is a new game you can make with someone on the panel, even the host's shirt design? Strawberry Shortcake.
A new game.
A new game that we can make with somebody on the panel?
No, it's
like
my Strawberry Shortcake.
I know.
Oh.
Somebody's fishing.
Somebody wants a Strawberry Shortcake game, huh?
I didn't write that question.
I mean,
at
I'm
all.
not gonna lie. I mean,
wasn't.
like, this is not part of any brand. This is just a cool shirt I like. But I mean, death metal cats. You know.
Well,
I would play that game.
Yeah. They have one in Animal Crossing.
Maybe you need like some corpse paint, Norwegian death metal style corpse paint on Kitty Paw.
On Kitty Paw.
Actually, that would be really fun. You have the two different boxes there. It's like side by side. That'd be amazing.
So you're saying you want to do a game about a death metal cat? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, if
I'd
people are really clever,
there's worse ideas out there.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, it could happen. I'm just saying, it could happen.
It could happen. I think we can. I think we could get on that. Let's check it out. Let's talk after the panel, guys.
I agree.
See, some good ideas can happen from the chat. See, Amanda's, I'm into it.
Maybe a different animal than a cat.
Like what? A bat?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work. Yeah.
We've got ideas. We don't want to waste everybody's time.
Ideas.
We'll figure it out and get back to you.
I know. I do like Amanda's. Death metal strawberry shortcake. Yes.
Oh.
Throw that in there. Think about that. Let that marinate a little. And
I'm not sure about the licensor approval on that one, but we can think about it.
We've started a whole thing. Christopher Chung's in the chat. What is it? Aggretsuko? I don't know what that is. We have a
death metal cat.
Okay.
That's a panda. That's a panda.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Panda.
Sorry.
We do have comic books available for Aggretsuko.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, now I need to go look this up because I feel like I'm out of the loop on that one. So I'm going to go and.
Oh, you need to watch the series.
Yes.
Is it on? Okay. Okay. I want to. I'll go look it up. It is on Netflix.
Oni. Much in the same way, Oni also has the comics that we published based on Gudetama. So there you go.
Okay. This is exciting.
Let your brains run wild. We're not announcing anything, but
no.
Okay.
No, and it certainly wasn't me.
No, I
mean, not you today, Scott. See, you're off the hook.
I like how my unintentional advanced marketing plan is working.
Right.
Sure.
Right? Oh, goodness. Okay, so now you've all got me on this thing. I'm going to check it out. Everyone in the chat saying I like it. So thank you, everybody, for the suggestions. I know this is a panel about all of you, but apparently I'm getting suggestions. So, all right. So before we close off, is there anything that any of you wanted to add to the mix? We'll do Steve, Scott, and then Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Make me go first, right?
Okay, or we can go.
There's nothing I want to add. This has been completely fulfilling.
Oh, okay, good. Like a good meal.
Wow.
All right.
Wait, I don't like that. Now it sets me up. If I say that there's anything I want to add, that means I wasn't fulfilled. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? Like, thanks, Steve. So
I'm just saying the host gave me everything I wanted for the morning, and if it didn't work for you, I'm sorry, Scott.
See, Steve, you can come back anytime. All right, Scott, your turn.
Oh boy. All right. No, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for hosting, Mandy. Everybody on the chat. But yeah, lots of stuff coming up. If you are a Scott Pilgrim Miniatures the World backer, keep an eye on the updates. It's on its way. Everything's in production. I know we didn't cover that, and we might have some people that tuned in for that, so I want to make sure that you're covered. But yeah, keep an eye on the updates. We're trying to send those out at least once a month, if not multiple times a month. And it's on the way. Should have it right around the end of the year, we hope. It's a crazy world. We're going into the fourth quarter, but everything's on track, and it looks amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal. Dan Bojanowski's been getting the last final tests out of the factory and stuff. Right. It's really cool. I was just looking at the miniatures again the other day, just because, just looking at them and taking them in. Yeah, it was fun. So thanks for tuning in, and more great stuff coming from Oni and Renegade in the future. We have lots of ideas now because of this panel. Yeah.
Yay! What about you, Charlie?
I don't have much to add. I miss playing board games with my friends in person. So wear your masks. Hopefully, we'll get back to weekly gaming sessions with rotating friends sooner than later. I would recommend everyone in America to vote down ballot and pay attention. And I really want to play board games again. I want to hang out. I would love to play Gudetama on a picnic blanket somewhere with a bunch of friends. I want to take a bunch of these games to a bar again, and I miss it a lot. So hopefully we'll have a better shot at that in next year.
Good. I know. I'm right there with you. I've been reviewing games and I've had to do them playing virtually. It's not quite the same, so I get it.
Yeah.
So, well,
and Charlie's tired of being beat up by his wife playing games.
This is true. That's
the underlying reason.
Yeah, his wife and his wee child are just abusing him, so he needs to play with friends so he has a chance to win.
It's true. It's like, I think if you play a lot of board games, it's like overthinking strategy on anything that you play new. And then my wife, who's not as voracious of a gamer as I am, she's the one who's like, yeah, I don't know how to play, and then she'll do stuff that is like, that's not how you're supposed to play the game, but it is. But it wasn't full of strategy. You just sort of figured it out on the fly, and that's how I get my butt kicked.
But you admit it freely, and it's okay. Oh goodness.
Yeah, but listen, I can lose with and be respectable all at the same time.
Good quality to have. Oh my goodness. Well, a big thank you to Charlie Chu, Scott Gata, Steve Ellis, and behind the scenes, doesn't come out very often, Chris Whitpen. Thank you for running this. I know you don't get the thanks, and I often forget, so we don't want to forget today. So thank you to the chat for some great questions and for being so involved in this panel. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.